All right, filter drop-down lists. There are various ways to do this. A lot of people will recommend all sorts of macros and things to do this. Others will recommend dynamic ranges, setting ranges, and dynamic ranges in the drop-down lists, and all sorts of things that get quite confusing for beginners, and also actually quite confusing for non-beginners. But not only that, but personally, as I said in the conditional formatting video where we did conditional formatting for using formulas, I normally like to keep conditional formatting and drop-down lists and data validation things and those type of things very, very simple. Keep that simple and let the formulas do the heavy lifting. That's normally the way I do things, because even if you get it right and it works, that's great. But then when you're coming in to fix the spreadsheet later on, it can become a nightmare trying to fix things like that and trying to edit stuff like that. So I usually try and keep that as very simple as possible. Let the formulas do the heavy lifting. Even if you hide them off the page, that's fine. You don't need to see them, but let the formulas do the work and keep that as simple as possible. So I'm going to apply that same logic here. Let's just say in this green section, I want to have a drop-down list. And in those drop-down lists, I want to have these options here in the drop-down list. But these options here, I only want to show odd numbers from there, for example. So let's first do the data validation. So if we click on that and we say we want to have a list, and we say that is the source over there. You can watch the drop-down list video to do that in more detail. There are other options on the error alerts and that kind of thing. But for now, let's just do that and say, so now when you click on that, you've got that drop-down list, which is that list there. As I said, if I've just done anything that doesn't make sense, have a look at the video on drop-down lists and it will make sense. So now what we need to do is we need to essentially filter this data to only give the odd numbers. So what I would normally do is I would put in a formula here to actually be able to filter out the odd numbers, but then only show the ones that are odd, for example. So if I do a simple formula here, if I go equals if, and then I say is odd, and I select that value there, equals true, then now, instead of putting the value in, what I would do now is I say, I create a max. So I say, put the max value of that plus 1. But now this is important. I need to lock that first cell, the E7, so that it stays at E7. So as I go down, it basically adds the next number on. So what it's doing now is it looks above it to go, what's the maximum number? And it adds 1 on each time. So each time you get an odd number, it's going to add 1 onto that value. And what do we do? If it's not an odd number, we leave it blank. So if I put that formula in, so now it says 1 because that's the first odd number. So if I copy that formula down, what it does now is it says that's 3, that's an odd number, so it adds the next number up 2. That's an odd number, so it says 3. That's an odd number 4. That's an odd number 5. Now I'm just doing that formula because I'm wanting to look for odd numbers for the sake of this video. You would use whatever formula you wanted to establish which of these values should be in the list, and then just simply add 1 onto it by using the max plus 1 to get the next value in sequence. Because once you've got that, now what I'll do is I will just simply do an if error index. What do I want to index? You can watch the index and match video if you want to see what to do here. What I want to index, I want to index that one. Let's lock that range. Match the next number up in sequence with the filtered list. As I said, I'm doing this quite quickly. If you want to watch the index and match formula, you can do so. So now what I've done is I have told this this column to look up the first one. So look up 1 here, which is 1. Look up 2, 2's there, which is 3. Look up 3, 3 there, which is 5. So now I've got all the odd numbers. So now when I click on the list, as you can see, it's got the odd numbers. What I can also do is I can also change the, I've got the odd numbers. I can now come and change this formula So even if I come here and put is even, edit, copy, and I paste that formula throughout, now it's going 1, 2, 4, 6, 8. It's giving me 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Sorry, it's giving me the even numbers, and they're the even numbers. And now I've got the even numbers in the list. So this could even be a dynamic list in the sense of instead of just putting is even, is odd, I could have a cell somewhere which would then determine what I enter into that cell, which would determine which of these would then have values to which would appear on the list. And I can then have a dynamic drop-down list. So the actual drop-down list is exactly the same as the other one. The only difference is I've used formulas to make it dynamic rather than actually fiddling with the drop-down list and creating name ranges and all the rest of it. So yes, there is a little bit more work to do in the sense of formulas, but at least now I can open this up and I can see exactly what I've done here to get to that drop-down list rather than having to go and open up dynamic ranges and try and figure out what's going on with that. So that's a simpler way to do filter drop-down lists. And yeah, I hope that's helpful to you. Thank you.